descriptions of his own process and awakening that he made sure to mention. Every illustration he gives is, I have rediscovered this thing. I've figured this out. It's here. He talked about, he's like, imagine I'm a woodcutter and I go into a forest and I find this ancient road to this beautiful city long abandoned. And I go back and I tell the king, we need to go here and clear out the road. And we clear out the road and we make this beautiful, gorgeous city. I didn't make it. It's always been here. I just found it. And now we all get to go there. So this is like one of the ways he would discuss this, to be clear that the deathless, Nibbana, the Absolute, is always already there. Okay. To that end, many practices on this end of the always already there, the doing less end of the doing spectrum, involve learning and training how to just refrain from adding anything to what's already present. Remember the Buddha's initial exclamation post-enlightenment, the gates to the deathless are already open. In practices like just sitting, shikantaza, zazen, in Dzogchen and some of the Tibetan tantric practices, just wide open, choiceless, blown out awareness without any fixation, no focal point. We're trying to do as little fabricating as possible. And we're taught to refrain from adding anything to experience. And just noticing whatever is arising right now and developing the ability to be calm and spacious in order to directly enter into this moment. So this would be the do less end of the doing spectrum. One of those practices that we're going to do next is called Tilopa's 6 nails. And this has been a big crowd favorite. Whenever I brought it up, it was a huge game changer for me. William, Starr, okay, this was like a big one for me, to have an actual way to do less. Because doing less is hard. And some genius, some wild person out in India 1,200 years ago gave their student these instructions, and he brought it to Tibet. And the guy who brought it, Naropa, was like the big scholar monastery founder. So luckily we have a record of this. Okay. And then briefly I want to talk about the other end of the spectrum, which is something we'll do at the end of the day. On the other end of the doing axis, we have practices that involve a lot more fabrication, more doing. Understanding the nature of our conditioned mind that always is adding to experiences, always storytelling, and how crucial intention and action are in our lives. You know, your practice isn't for the cushion, it's for out there. The Buddha and teachers after him have developed many skillful ways of working that, while strictly speaking, you can consider them fabricating, additive. They're adding like a story or a practice to experience. While strictly speaking can be considered to be fabricated or additive, they lead us gradually to the unfabricated, as our reliance on and clinging to the self-illusion are worn through gently over time. This includes practices like praying, bowing, chanting, cultivation of wholesome heart states. The practice we're going to do later is one of these practices. It's called the Brahma Vihara. It's also called the 4 Immeasurables. And this is just kind of cultivating these natural inborn qualities of heart that come out in relationship to other people, relationship to whatever is arising in me. They're relational, they're social in a way. And so many other practices in which we, for instance, meditate upon meritorious deeds we have done, mindfulness of our good conduct. This is a very important practice. Even just think about how powerful every single person in this room has done something kind to somebody else. That's so beautiful. That's so powerful. And you can actually use that as a meditation object and move into and abide in a cultivation of that pleasure, which will actually motivate you to be more kind in the future. Or thinking of the qualities and activities of the Buddha or other figures, historical or semi-historical. Our heart is purified as we reflect on these inspiring and wholesome subjects, and it gradually purifies our conduct and ways of being in the world. Also, just like the doing less practices at the other end of the spectrum, these doing more practices allow us to open to life in a natural, uncontrived way. The Buddha was of the opinion that these wholesome heart states, loving kindness, compassion, joy, the joy of another, equanimity, and there's actually a whole raft of other ones that aren't included in those four, like generosity, patience, etc. He was of the opinion that these are actually our natural way of relating to ourselves and the world at large, when we aren't being fooled and taken in and blocked by self-grasping, neuroses, trauma, social conditioning, etc. We can recover them and habituate them, just like we have done our suboptimal ways of habitual compulsive being. And both ends of the spectrum and every point in between harmonize and find fulfillment and awakening. And everybody has their own kind of, maybe that changes over time. When I was younger, I liked a lot of doing, and that was my kind of understanding. And then I had a big kind of flip out when I was like, oh my God, I can do nothing. And now I kind of, find myself somewhere on this doing spectrum on a day-to-day basis. So, I know I said a lot. Oh, Travis, did I take the blue folder? Would you be okay to check for me? I'm now remembering the thing that I needed to do when I figured out I was sitting on the couch. Luckily, I've emailed it to enough people that have copies. That's so weird. I swear there was nobody in that room a second ago. Here we go. Awesome. Okay. Thank you. I probably took in my head, the blue folder with all the stuff is here. And I think I'll, okay. So again, we're doing less, right? So Talopa's 6 nails are 6 instructions of how to practice in this way of doing less. And so these 6 nails, they're called 6 nails because it's like 6 sharp, clear points that drive it home. And they are, and I'll go through this as well, but I just want to post them. And so don't recall, don't imagine. And I'm a person that doesn't like to hear no or don't. I don't care for that. I'm a little, you tell me what to do. But it's almost like if somebody was like, hey, don't work so hard. I'm like, oh, okay, I can do that. So that's what this is. This is 5, don't work so hard, and 1, here's what you're going to do. Don't. And I know this is going to send people into it. Don't think that's just terrifying. What do you mean don't think? I'm thinking right now. Am I not thinking now? I get it. I totally get it.
I'm doing this personally, I kind of will change the wording for myself to refrain from recalling too much.
Nice.
To like lighten it up, so I
hold it softly.
So I'm not stressing about. Well, I just recalled.
Oh my God.
I recalled the.
I failed.
Do you know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
So by changing.
Now I'm thinking about recalling.
Because again, words, language, 2,000 years ago.
Yeah.
Don't know. Teacher training, like, so to myself, a little softer with it.
All right. Can you guys see this, or should I put it up? Because it can go up if it needs to go up. No? Okay. Feel free to, if you change your mind. So for the folks on this side of the room, don't recall, don't imagine, don't think, don't examine, don't control. Just rest. Right? Thanks a lot, buddy. Where are we going with this? All right.
I mean, like finally someone told me just relax a little bit.
Right? This is a lot of work. Okay. So I'm just going to read them briefly, just by way of giving kind of a. Yeah, I'm just going to read through them briefly. There's a little bit of an expanded instruction by way of kind of breaking down each thing, which I find very helpful. So this is from the great, there's a word Mahasiddha, which is Sanskrit for great perfected one, named Tilopa, who was actually, according to the racial and class hierarchy of India, was an outcast. He ground sesame seeds to make oil for the brothels. Very low caste work. And luckily for us, the great sage and scholar monk Naropa went to India to find some masters and to retrace and get some written down scriptures. And he met this person, and this was the instruction he was given. Don't recall. And maybe I'll read it like briefly, and then when we do the practice, I'll read through them. Don't recall. Let go of what is past. Let the past be just as it is. So don't recall is anything at all that has already happened. The first point is not to be distracted by, dwell upon, get involved in, get lost in, nourish, encourage, or follow thoughts about the past. Now it's funny because it seems like that's really hard, right? And it would take a lot of energy to not do that. But the opposite is actually true. We're actually expending mental energy when we're tracing down the past. And for most of us, we want to be tracing down the past if there wasn't a whole lot of emotional energy wrapped up in this very important thing. I'm still having fights with people that I haven't seen in 20 years in my head. It's a lot of energy, and we're used to it. We've habituated to it, so we think it's as easy as pie. And then some weirdo with a weird shirt's like, nah, don't do that. We're like, but actually, it's effort. And Tilopa is saying, stop. Just refrain. Just give it a pass. Trust me, it'll be there when you get up from your chair. Anything that arises concerning anything that has ever occurred, or even one thought prior to the current one can just let go of. And also, it doesn't mean if you do think of something that passed, you have failed. It means when you do pick up something, go, oh, you're invited to put it down again. Ultimately, one should strive to develop the discipline of the automatic habit of letting go, letting go, letting go. And in practice, begin to inhabit the state of letting go. Don't imagine. Let go of whatever may come. Let go of any expectation for the future. The second point is, don't be distracted by, dwell upon, get involved in, get lost in, nourish, encourage, or speculate about the future or thoughts of the future. Let them go as well. The funny part about the first 2 points is this is the primary way that we habitually express clinging and aversion. We generally have regret about the past, and then fear or joyful expectation about the future. I mean, I'll speak for myself. That's me. That's how I do it. I'm like, I can't wait. I'm going to eat this, or I'm going to do this, or I'm going to have that experience, and man, I don't like the way that went, da 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 da. In Burma, they have a 3-question thing that they do involving those two. The way they say it is, am I waiting for something to happen? Am I waiting for something to stop happening? Am I awake to what is happening now? That's a pretty big envelope. Okay, back to this. Number 3, don't think. Just let go of what's happening now. The third point is not to be distracted by etc. or follow thoughts about the present. In particular, one should refrain from labeling and reactivity in relationship to whatever is arising. Thoughts, emotions, or physical sensations. Let go of any worry or resistance about what is happening right now. Instead, let everything arise and pass away naturally, without judgment. This is also called in the Tibetan tradition, leaving mind in its natural place. Number 4, don't examine. Don't try to figure anything out. The 4th point is often called don't meditate, which I know would just be a little too much, but I like that. Don't meditate. Refrain from, let go of the temptation, which at some point almost always arises in the experience of meditators, to improve or try to make better one's meditation by meditating on tranquility or emptiness or clarity or bliss, or by any kind of fabrication or contriving any other strategy to improve one's meditation. If I'm just going to rest in the moment, then any kind of self-improvement scheme or meditation improvement scheme has already thrown it out the window. And I'm trying to manufacture some kind of experience that I have decided I like better. This can look like trying to assess our current meditative development, or where we're at, or what we're studying, or comparing ourselves to other meditators, or comparing ourselves or our experience to that one time we did that thing that was really blissful. If you're practicing for a long time, you will have some incredible, profound insights, intense spiritual experiences. It's gonna happen. Don't get hung up. Such assessments of our performance can create a subtle shift in the experience of meditation from an openness to whatever is arising to an experience that is objectified, artificialized, and fabricated. Just keep your experience rooted in whatever is happening now. Number 5, don't control. Don't try to make anything happen. Don't analyze. Just let mind rest. According to the 5th point, one should not analyze. One should not engage in the asking of some such questions as, how am I doing now? And what about now? And what if I sat this way? And what's going on in my mind? Just let go of all tendencies to analyze one's experience. Tilopa is gently reminding us that actively trying to manipulate whatever is arising in meditation is not what we are seeking. What we should do, according to Tilopa, is rest. Relax right now and rest. So then, if one is not to be distracted by thoughts of past, present, or future, not to meditate, not to think, not to analyze, what should I be doing? The answer is nothing. Talopa's sixth point is just leave mind to itself. Just relax and rest. And whatever arises in our experience, one should neither welcome nor reject, neither encourage nor suppress, nor get lost in whatever's arising. Practice is not about intensity. It's about coming back to ease, the natural ease of mind and body settling into raw experience. Awareness is already present. You don't have to manufacture it. Your mind is and has always been, from the very beginning, vast, luminous, and free. Okay, so if you aren't already, I invite you to find a comfy way of sitting. Now, when working with an instruction or a set of instructions like this, in fact, maybe I should move this so everybody can see it. Should I move this in front? No? Okay. So, and in fact, you can even shorthand the first 5 and just notice if you aren't resting. And for me, I actually almost like to say it like a mantra, and I'll be sitting and I'll catch myself doing something and I'll just mentally go, rest. Or I'll say something like, here. So, and if it helps, I invite you to look at the whiteboard while you're sitting. But let's just see if we can come to rest in the natural awareness that's always present. Finding a comfortable way of being, a restful and relaxed way of holding the body. With nowhere else to go. Nothing else to do. And no one else to be. simply allowing this mind to remain in its natural place, as vast as the vast sky. Of the nature of infinite hospitality, rejecting nothing, clinging to nothing, resting. And please feel free to adjust and move and wiggle and maybe we'll open the floor for 5 minutes and then the next thing on our list is lunch, and I wanted to advocate if you know best what you need to do, but I wanted to see if I could advocate for us taking lunch together. Anybody who's here for the first couple of times, you can instantly tell we're a very professional organization. Anything that you see that causes you suffering, I'm not saying that there isn't something there that needs to be dealt with in a skillful and kind way, but that heat, that layer of suffering and contraction that's on top of it, that's unnecessary suffering. And that's what we're adding to it with our self-delusion. And I feel like I normally do outside walking meditation after lunch just to give us a chance to digest and not fall asleep, because I'm a very sleepy meditator. So if it were me, I'd be like snoring back there right now. But in retrospect, it's a wonderful opportunity to take this out into this is a very safe environment. This is like the laboratory, this is like the gym. We're all here for a specific reason. We've identified ourselves as safe people to be vulnerable around, and we go out there and it's a completely different world, and our mind is primed for threat. It's ready, and I'm speaking for myself, it's just amazing. So getting used to that, familiarizing ourselves with it, and not even having to fix that. Like you could see, right? We have a reaction that we don't like, and then we have a reaction that we had a reaction we don't like, and then we had a reaction we had just learning to meet whatever is arising with real kindness and presence goes so far. And we don't have to be perfect, whatever that means. I mean, as far as I can tell, you're already perfect. I've never met another Judy like you. You're Judy. Perfect. Every single person in this room is an absolutely, utterly unique, totally precious, singular in all of space and time phenomena arising. So you already win, and now you can just meet your experience with that kindness, including your resistance, the funny hijinks your brain gets up to, etc., etc., etc. But just by way of drilling down into why we're here today, I just want to invite you to understand that there's no amount of suffering that we don't add to situations that directly implicates our self-illusion. It's literally, there's all kinds of glib Hallmark bumper sticker type, no self, no problem, and yeah, that's fine. It's not a very charitable way to put it, but if you've ever had anyone accuse you of something you didn't do, I'm sure I share this with other people, but one of my big triggers is being misunderstood and having my good intentions misconstrued. Nothing turns me into a more upset, it drives me nuts. It absolutely is one of my number one things. And then the second the person goes, oh, I'm sorry, I misunderstood, I'm like, oh. And I'm like, wait a minute, nothing changed. Like the reality of the situation didn't change. What am I mad about? I'm mad about what they must think of me. Why? Who am I defending? Who am I trying to protect? This self that I think I should be? This is why in this world, in the path that the old man has set out, clinging to your identity as a good person is just as dangerous as clinging to your identity of, I don't think anyone actually thinks of themselves as a bad person, but like, I'm a good meditator, I'm a good this, I'm a good that, and anytime that's threatened, I'll show you. Nothing makes me think I'm a good meditator more than getting angry when I think someone doesn't think I'm a good meditator. So, right? Thank you. This guy gets it. So, this is why Ajahn Chah, famous Thai forest monk, says all over the place, and echoing the Buddha, like, don't make yourself into anyone or anything. I even like the way he chose that word. Don't make yourself into anyone or anything. Don't be enlightened, don't be a meditator, don't be a Buddha. When you sit, let it be. When you walk, let it be. Resist nothing, cling to nothing. Just instantly, just refraining from fighting with reality exactly as it is. You don't need to make yourself into anything. Okay, I didn't know that was going to happen in relationship to the walk.
Can I share something?
Yes.
Okay, on my walk, I saw 3 different people. The first guy, I said hello. He said hello. The second guy came out of his wall, and I said hello, and he ignored me. And then the third person smiled. I said hello, and she smiled. So it was all different reactions. And of course, the one that bothered me was the one who didn't say hello back. Right. And it's just, I don't know, I just thought it was very inclusive of each different hello. Mm-hmm. Everybody had a different way of, and I never really, because I walk a lot, mm-hmm. and I try and say hello a lot, and I get upset a lot because they don't say back to me. Because I want people to be friendlier. They better be. But I can't make them. Mm-hmm. But just this 15-minute walk around, it was like, I thought it was very interesting how it was all very little different. Mm-hmm. I mean, for me personally, what strikes me is the second guy might not even have heard you. You know, he might have had... Yeah? You never know. Yeah. And it's a thing where I think I know what's going on with people. And like, if they were to explain to me that wasn't going on for me, I'd be like, oh my God, I'm so sorry, I feel so dumb. Like, and like, I'm the guy, if we're right about him, I'm the guy who didn't say anything back and didn't make eye contact. I'm used to being a big, scary guy and people telling me that. And I don't want to be that for anyone. I want to be everyone's friend. But I don't want to say hi to people because I don't want them to worry about me or be scared. And also I'm like socially kind of a little bit awkward. Mm. Oh, I got tea, thank you. And usually in my head. And so I have all these reasons that literally have nothing to do with that person who just said hi. Exactly. And my wife walks around saying hi to strangers while we're walking together, and it gives me an excuse to say hi and be friendly, because now I'm safe because I've got this nice person with me.
But like the first few years of walking around with her, I'd be like, what are you doing? Do you literally just say hi to people you don't know? And she goes way overboard. I like your shirt. And I'm just like, don't look at me. And it just blows my mind. Yes, sir. Yes. Oh, I thought you were getting your mug. Thank you.
No. So I wanted to say that I was that person that didn't say hi. When I was walking, I caught myself, someone said hi. And I was in my head that I didn't have enough time to respond the hi. And I'm like, so to answer your question, maybe they're not, it's not that they're not friendly, maybe they're...
You never know. And regardless, it's so interesting that the anger comes up.
But isn't it true? We think we know?
Oh, we think we know. We don't know shit.
Yeah, 15 things going around in here.
We don't ever
He's in a
know.
hurry, he's wearing this, he's doing that.
We never know. We don't know
The best
anything.
thing that out of all this is, I realized to let it go.
Oh, brilliant.
Instead of playing with it for an hour, he's in a hurry, you know? Whatever.
Yeah. I was driving to this, not this specific class, but a class or two back. I was driving here, and some guy was like drifting in and out of lanes and like slowing down and maybe looking for parking or maybe lost. And I made eye contact with this guy, and I had already built up this whole thing about what this guy was like and what he was about and how rude and inconsiderate and a shitty driver and all these terrible things about him. And when I made eye contact with him, the look on his face was like panic and lostness. He was just like
He was lost.
completely lost, and he's probably late, and who knows what kind of pressure he's under. And he was just like this, and I didn't have time, and I still had my mean face on. And I drove by on my way to meditation class, going like this. I will never, I don't know that I'll forget that. Maybe I shouldn't forget it. Maybe it was just a good opportunity for me to be like, you don't know what's going on in anyone else's life, in their head. And
that's why it took 17 years for you to say hi.
Yeah, this guy was shopping at my Trader Joe's for 17 years. I should have figured he was a cool guy. He's one of my people. And I'm just like, I don't know, I'm just putting up cases of potatoes. Okay. Isn't that funny? I swear. Okay, move this way. Thank you. Over here. Oh, sure. Yeah, I don't know how many we need now.
Thank you.
Franz, were they here? Did you have to go home for that?
They were at home, but they weren't the fourth places I left. They weren't in my puja bag. They weren't on
About
the.
that?
Isn't that great? They were with all my meditation stuff, so that makes perfect sense. But of course, why would I look there?
It's always the last place you look, right?
Yeah, right. Okay, so are there enough copies?
No, we're a couple short.
Really?
Someone, you can, if someone wants.
Yeah, we can share.
No.
You want a good idea? Didn't we get it Monday?
We did, but a lot of people handed it back.
Right. Oh,
Yeah.
that was generous of them. I
Yeah.
took one.
Well, we've got an extra right here. Judy, you want one?
Yeah. Oh, no, I have one here.
Oh,
I really
Oh,
do.
okay.
yeah, but do you want one for right now?
Yeah.
I'd kill myself getting
Yeah.
it.
No, please don't. Okay. All right. So you may know what they are, but let me go to my notes. Here we go. Okay. So the four immeasurables, the Brahmaviharas. A good way to think of these. Now, first the name Brahmavihara means, let's shorthand it by calling it the divine abodes, or the heavenly abodes, the heavenly places, the heavenly homes. Like, abode is where you live. So this comes up very early in the traditional teachings, in the early, what we call the suttas, the earliest teachings of the Buddha. And it's something that teachers bang on about non-stop. Maybe it's important, I guess, for the next 2,600 years. For me, it's probably the most crucial piece, one of the most crucial pieces that was like the secret jet fuel for my practice and life. And a lot of people will kind of spend more time on one or another depending on what they need in their life. In the later tradition in Tibet, they call it the four immeasurables, because these qualities are absolutely immeasurable. They are infinite. You can always go deeper and further with them. Okay. The Brahmaviharas, also known as the Four Immeasurables, these powerfully wholesome heart states were praised by the Buddha and all teachers after him as sublime, beautiful ways of being. And the cultivation of them is a genius, strategic way of gradually wearing down our habitual self-grasping in thought, feeling, and action, till the self-illusion is seen right through. So this is, remember at the very beginning I was talking about on that doing axis, we have Tilopa's 6 nails, which is like, don't do a damn thing, just rest. And then we have the practice we did at the very beginning where we're actively looking for pleasure in the body and trying to actively let go and settle. That's kind of in the middle of this spectrum of doing. And now we're over on the Brahmaviharas, which is a lot of doing. I want to mention that a lot of people, when they first contact these practices or this practice, it feels really forced, it feels really artificial. I've heard from the lips of many teachers, like, they first got a hold of it and it was like weird and kind of like hippie-ish and sentimental, and they weren't sure how they felt about it. And strangely, a lot of us are dealing with a fair amount of self-loathing. Shocker. You may not know this. So somebody actually saying, hey, could you cultivate like loving kindness and compassion for yourself? That's harder than like not thinking anything for a lot of people. And a lot of us are still beating ourselves with the words that our parents told us when we were children. Like childhood trauma. Talk about like, we like to talk about suffering and the eradication of suffering, and people are like, oh, I don't have any suffering in my life. And it's like, oh, that's interesting. You made it through an entire childhood with no suffering? Are you sure? Are you sure you don't hear the disapproval and the voices of your parents or caregivers, or those times when you wanted to get love and compassion and you got evil and punishment instead? I think it's a really rare person that is able to get there, that didn't suffer. And not even just in childhood. Anyway, side note. But it's significant to me that generally speaking as adults, as humans rather, everything we learn about love and compassion and kindness and care, we learn in our early childhood. And very often it's suboptimal. And this really sets us up for a lot of suboptimal patterning around these qualities. So in a way, you could look at the Brahmaviharas as an active meditative reparenting. We can now be the ideal caregiver to these wounds in our heart and be that person that we wanted to have around us as a child. And it doesn't even necessarily have to be a child developmentally or historically. Every person in their deepest heart has the heart of a child. Love, attachment, care, compassion, these tender places never truly grow old. They are always in that tender, open place. So, also I invite you to reflect that anything that takes skill will feel forced or awkward at first. Dancing, surfing, anything at all that takes some skill and some care, some practice will feel forced or awkward. And then it's really important when we are doing this practice, if you are feeling, very common to feel resistance. Some people, they'll drop a phrase like, may I be happy, for loving kindness practice into their awareness. And it's almost like an echo, you don't deserve to be happy. I mean, they just instantly, I've known people, this is not uncommon. The great thing about these qualities is that they work at every scale. So let's say I'm sitting here and I'm like, may I be happy? And I encounter resistance. Okay, can I feel kindness for the resistance? Or can I activate kindness to the resistance? It works at every scale. It works at the level of my heart, at the resistance to it, at the resistance to that, at the resistance to that. You can just keep framing out. And eventually, it has its own momentum. Travis, do you think it would be rude if I went next door and told them that we're having a silent class next door?
Or I might be just letting you say, hey, we're having a silent class. It's over there.
Totally okay. We're just having a silent meditation class next door. Totally fine. No, it's fine. People are just, having a lovely conversation. Just because we've decided to sit and be quiet doesn't mean the world has to stop.
Really?
Right? Okay. Now, if you look on your sheet, every Brahmavihara, every wholesome heart quality, whatever you want to call it, I like to think of them as wholesome heart states. And I'll just name them briefly. So, loving kindness. So the word loving kindness, below it is the word metta, which is the word in the Pali language, in which the teachings of the Buddha were first written down pen to paper, or stylus to birch bark. And then rotating clockwise, the next one on the list is compassion, which was karuna in the Pali language. 12 o'clock is equanimity, upekkha in the Pali language. And 3 o'clock, sympathetic joy, mudita in the Pali language. So I'm going to go through these, and I just want to also mention, as I go through them, you'll notice that below the Pali terms, so it goes loving kindness, metta, and then a workable definition, unconditional friendliness, benevolence, goodwill. That's a perfectly fine, usable definition. And below that, it says far enemy, ill will, and near enemy, conditional love. And each one of these qualities has a far enemy and a near enemy. So I'm just going to take it by the numbers, and I'll explain as we go. Looking at the chart, each Brahmavihara has a definition and a near enemy and a far enemy. Looking at them, we may notice an interesting quality about the near and far enemies of each. They each embody a form of self-grasping that blocks, either in an obvious and overt way, in the case of the far enemy, or in a more subtle way, in the case of the near enemy, the optimal quality of heart set forward by the Buddha. The far enemies are kind of obvious and maximally reactive, and the near enemies are sneakier, softer, and therefore maybe a little more dangerous, or maybe take a little more time and care to root out. As regards emptiness / self-grasping, a rule of thumb for this practice is always this: is this practice making me feel more or less empathetic with my fellow sentient beings? Does it join me to the world at large, or is it parting me from the world at large? And this is probably a good rubric to use in every aspect of our life. Is this creating distance and duality, or is this creating intimacy and non-duality? So, metta, friendliness, kindness, benevolence, goodwill. The traditional phrase that accompanies metta is, may I be happy, may you be happy, may all beings be happy. So this is that thing I was talking about where it works at every scale. And according to the later commentarial tradition, you begin with yourself with this practice, and then it issues outward in waves. So when we actually are doing the practice, I have a little chart here. Maybe I'll come back to that. I'll do that at the end. Okay, the far enemy of metta is ill will, also known as hostility, hatred, and the way it plays into the self-other thing is, well, it's not me, so I don't care, right? And in fact, it's not me, and the world is a zero-sum game, and there's only so many pieces of banana bread, and if you get one, I don't get one. And it sounds cartoonish, I'm sitting here talking, but this is literally how the vast majority of the world is operating. Consumer capitalism is a zero-sum game, and there's only so much, and I better get mine. And what do I care about you or anyone else? And it sounds cartoonish and cutthroat, but that's literally what's going on. So that's you can see how that's pretty overt. That's the far enemy. The near enemy is conditional love, or partiality. It's easy to have kindness or love for people when they do what you want them to do, right? I only like people who do what I want them to do, or what I think they should do, or what I would do in their place. This kind of conditional love actually denies another person's agency and autonomy and self-determination. It divides the world up into different classes of people who deserve varying levels of my kindness. Even thinking about the way we might use people for different needs satisfaction, and determine their worth based on that. So you could see people being like, no, I'm friendly, I'm kind to people. Yeah, when they do what you want. Or, I'll speak for myself, when they do what I want and act the way I want them to. That is the near enemy of kindness, of metta, which is like the sun. Metta doesn't pick and choose. May all beings be happy. Karuna, compassion. Traditionally, compassion is talked about as the quivering of the heart when it meets the suffering of oneself or another. It's as simple as the feeling, like very often when we meet the suffering in another person's life, we close ourselves off to keep us safe, or we other the person. Oh, you're suffering because you made bad choices. You must be a bad person somehow, otherwise it wouldn't be happening to you. And this way we get to armor our heart and not feel that for them. Another way of thinking of karuna is availability. Just being open to and available to care for another at whatever level makes sense for you. You may not want to turn over your life savings to a stranger that you just meet, but maybe you can extend a hello, or a caring look, or a meal, or some charity work, something. And the phrase traditionally for karuna is, for instance, beginning with oneself, may I be free of suffering, or may all beings be free of suffering. It's not that we're looking to necessarily, like, I'm trying to keep myself safe from suffering, so you better feel better soon. It's meeting someone's suffering, or our own suffering, with real openness, and then being available. How can I help? What can I do? So you are looking to alleviate your own suffering or the suffering of another. It's a way of meeting suffering without shutting down. Remaining open. Okay, the far enemy of compassion, did you have oh sorry, I thought I heard something. The far enemy of compassion is cruelty. It's easy to see that when others are not as real or as important to me, it's easy to be cruel to them. And this is again talking about the selfing delusion. When I exist as the only eternal subject and beholder of the universe, everything else is at arm's length to me. You're all just like objects, figures on a screen. You're not really real like I am. When the self is the seat of awareness and the center of all fields of consciousness, then all the people and things become objects. I objectify the whole cosmos and all beings, and I'm only responsible for my own happiness. The near enemy of karuna, of compassion, is pity. As with the other near enemies, we can absolutely feel the difference on the receiving end. Nobody likes to be pitied. Why? Because pity is putting someone in a lesser position. I'm in the superior position. I feel bad for this thing that happened. But I'm not in real relationship. Compassion works when we know how that feels, or at least I know how it feels to suffer. I may not know your specific situation, but I know what it's like to feel pain. I know what it's like to suffer. I'm right there with you. Once again, we see how self-centeredness or self-grasping blocks our true radical solidarity with beings. Number 3, mudita, joy at the joy of others. Common mudita phrase is, may you enjoy good fortune, or may you enjoy good fortune all your days. The obvious far enemy of mudita, of joy at the joy of others, is jealousy. Wanting it, why didn't that happen to me? Don't I deserve it as much as they do? How come they got this? And this could even be one person removed. Like my oldest son is a special needs kid. He has autism and ADHD, and he's great, he's brilliant, he's really himself. He's a very interesting guy. And I still, when I see kids that he went to preschool with having fabulous, successful lives in a world that was made for them, it breaks my goddamn heart. It really still to this day hurts. Because I am still thinking of myself and my pain as the most important thing. The other way that jealousy can present is sour grapes, boredom, callousness. I didn't want that anyway. Who cares? Like, why? It's just amazing how hard it is to just be present to our own feelings. And we have to do all these like maneuvers. Like you can just feel jealousy and meet it with kindness and compassion and see if you can start to cultivate it in a helpful way. You know what? I would like to have that too. So good for you. May you enjoy good fortune. May you be happy. The near enemy of mudita is called hypocrisy and intoxication. This is like, what's being spoken of is when another person gets something that we would want for ourselves, we create emotional distance from our own natural disappointment by going overboard into a simulation of joy and excitement for them. It's fragile and paper thin. Has anyone ever experienced something like that? Because I know I have. Like the number of times that somebody has gotten something really amazing and valuable, and I flip so quick I don't even notice it at first into, oh my God, that's so great, that's so wonderful for you, that's awesome. And then actually what's at the heart of it is like, my jealousy is, God damn it, why? Why not me? It would be so much more valuable just to meet my own feelings and then wholesomely work towards appreciation for them. It's fragile, paper thin, and in the end alienates us from our own process and emotions. And lastly, upekkha, equanimity, emotional balance. As a spiritual virtue, upekkha means stability in the face of the natural fluctuations of worldly fortune. There will always be happiness and sadness, joy and pain, praise and blame. Those winds are constantly blowing. That's just the way the weather is today. Franz, you're the smartest guy ever. Franz, you're a moron. It is an evenness of mind and heart, unshakable freedom of heart, inner equipoise that eventually, after cultivation and being made strong, it is cannot be upset by gain and loss, honor and dishonor, etc. Upekkha is freedom from all points of self-reference. Equanimity gives space to appreciate whatever is arising. Equanimity is characterized by promoting the aspect of balance towards ourselves and all beings. Equanimity carries within it the understanding that you cannot make people do what's good for them. I don't even know what's good for other people. So equanimity is this balance. It's like the meeting place between love and compassion and joy at good fortune, and understanding that other beings make their own karma. Other beings make their own choices. And that's okay. Equanimity is the loving connection balanced by the understanding that all beings are responsible for their actions. May I be peaceful is a common equanimity phrase, or may I meet this with peace. The far enemy of equanimity is paranoia. What I'm pointing out with the word paranoia is the state of having one's experience of the world so tightly contracted into selfish narcissism that everything in the world is either an object of desire or an object of threat. When the self-illusion is the center pole, the axis of one's life and consciousness, everything and everyone is defined only in relationship to, is this for me or against me? And then, this is my big bugaboo right now, coming up. The near enemy of equanimity is cold indifference. Cold indifference masquerades as equanimity. It masquerades as spiritual balance. It's called indifference. Comes in equanimity's clothing, but it feels different. It has a different affect. I don't care is not the same as I care deeply for you, but I cannot make your choices for you. And you are the heir of your actions. Indifference is cold and unfeeling. It's distant. It's also, unfortunately, very common in let's say, the meditation world. It's an easy bypass. It's notable to me on this subject that the Buddha's critique of some of the meditation practices that were prevalent in his day, and a couple that he studied, gave blissful, powerful, concentrated states while you're practicing. But he noticed that it didn't change him for the better as a person. He would sit down and have these intense, blissful, like 35,000 feet experiences removed from all the complicated, sticky messiness of his life, and he would be all super blissed out, and then he'd get up and he was the same jerk he was when he sat down. This is his critique of a lot of those kind of concentration-based practices that were popular in his day. These have to be therapeutic. Again, that rubric, is this making me more intimate with life or less? Okay. Very briefly, any questions on the four Brahma Viharas, the four immeasurables? I know I'm probably numbing you with the amount of talk, but I just want to get all that out. And you can take the piece of paper with you. You can find this stuff online. There's 100,000 people's different riffs of it with greater or lesser quality. But even just by way of starting the conversation in your life.
Thank you for what you just said about equanimity. I care deeply for you, but I can't make your choices, because my question around the whole compassion issue is always the whole, tough love, setting boundaries. Where am I causing suffering to somebody else by setting a boundary that they don't like?
That's a hard one. I've got kids, and that's tough for me, because I'm the dad who wants to feed everybody and take care of everybody and make it safe for everybody. And Kalidas is like, you realize, of course, that he has his own key. And he, I'm always like, let me drive you. It's just amazing. So you're going to have to feel that out for yourself in every micro circumstance. But yeah, that's not cold, what you just described. I care so deeply for you, and make your decision. So I'm glad that was helpful.